Thank you.
Okay, take two. Kia ora te whānau, ko Tracy Scott aho. It is my great pleasure to work with you this afternoon on behalf of Life Education Trust. With you is my wonderful class of Year 7 to 10 students who I know are going to be very focused at the end of a long, hard day in the classroom. Today, I would like to spend some time with you talking about vaping, and specifically the program we are delivering today is called VapeTruths. I hope that you've all got visuals coming up in front of you and that you can all hear. That's the first thing to check. If there's any issues with the slides or the volume, please pop a wee note in your Zoom chat and my wonderful tech support, Michelle, will pick that up and let me know. So today we are looking at vaping, and the purpose behind today's session is to make you all more aware, prepared and empowered so that you as young people can make the good decisions, good healthy decisions about what is going into your body and particularly into those very precious lungs. Firstly, see if everyone has got access and knows how to use the thumbs up. We're going to pose a question to you. Vaping, the healthy alternative to smoking. Have a think about that statement, everyone. And if you think that statement is true, if you agree with that statement, I would like you to put your hand up. And to put your hand up, just as a wee reminder, if you're looking for that, it is there's some emojis along the bottom of your Zoom screen there. And if you put your hand up, that means that you agree with that statement. So I'll just give people a few seconds there to find that. And let's just see. Who are we working with tonight, Michelle? Is it the healthy alternative to smoking that we all thought it might be?
We have a few hands up, but very few.
That's good. We may have a bit of knowledge already in this class today, Michelle, I'm hoping. So just to recap, New Zealand is aiming to be smoke-free by 2025. That means that we're hoping to get less than 5% of the population still smoking. And vaping has been brought in as the healthy alternative. But I guess the more we learn about that, the more understanding that we are all getting, hence the workshop today. Just going up to the right screen. Right, it'll be interesting to see if there's anyone able to pop an answer into the chat here, Michelle. Who can write down in the chat the number of billion neurons that we think we might all have in our brain, because that's what this amazing visual is showing us. Can anyone in class today let us know how many billion neurons they think there might be in the brain? Tricky.
Oh, Tracy, that did not take long. We've got very quickly, the chat is going mad. We've got anywhere between 86 billion and about 100 billion. And it just carries on.
That's a big range.
Very quick for people to answer that.
That is a big range. So to the person who said 86 billion, you are spot on, and we might have to organise a virtual chocolate fish to come your way. There's a lot of neurons working in our brain and activating and making these connections all the time. And that's the reason that we are wanting to protect that brain. So as we're going to learn today through the VapeTruths workshop, vaping has a big impact on our brains. And we really need to be minimising that impact for as long as we possibly can on our brains. So sticking with the idea of the brain, here is a visual that some of you may be familiar with from your previous learning, perhaps in the mobile classroom with Healthy Harold. So here we have a visual that shows the brain development. Some of you might even know that our brains develop from the back of our brains to the front. And the front of that brain, our prefrontal cortex, is the very last part of the brain to develop. So what these colours are showing here is that part of our brain developing. And as you can see, it's a very late stage of our lives that our brains are getting fully developed. So the purple is showing that our prefrontal cortex is not developing until quite late in life. And there's probably an opportunity for another question in there if anyone would like to jump in and say when they think our brains are fully developed. Much later than young people normally think.
Very quick, mid-20s, approximately 25 to 30, 27. So we're all in the right range. Because as we know, it's different for every person, roughly.
Well done, excellent. So later than you think. And when you think about some of those big decisions that our young people and we're all making at different stages of our lives, the fact that our prefrontal cortex is not developed until maybe mid-20s is something to think about. So other big decision-making times of our life, learning to drive, being able to vote, all of those decisions are being made before that part of our brain is fully developed. So yeah, certainly something to think about. When it comes to vaping, we've already touched on the fact that vaping does have a connection with our brain and especially with our lungs, hence needing to have a look at those impacts sooner rather than later. Right. Let's get our heads into the space of what vapes actually look like. What are we talking about here? What are the devices? So here's a couple of visuals vaping devices look like, and they can even look as sleek and slim and as hidden as a pen. So if you've got a pen or a highlighter on your desk, they're being hidden pretty well now into very small devices, very easy to pop into the pencil case, as we know, and parents and teachers very easy to hide out of sight. So they're just a couple of visuals of what our vapes are starting to look like. In terms of the device itself, there's quite a few component parts that are inside a vape. So we've obviously got the mouthpiece that goes into the mouth. We've got a cartridge that stores the nicotine, more on that later. We've got a heating element, and some of you might have actually heard that those heating elements do heat up to quite dangerous levels. And there has been occasions where they have exploded, either in people's faces, in people's bags, unfortunately also in beds, because believe it or not, some people leave their vaping devices beside their beds or on their pillows. And there's a battery and other little bits and pieces there that basically work with the juice and heat it up to the level so that it becomes a vapor that we inhale. Next question. Be ready in the chat, people. True or false? So if you think this statement is true, pop your hand up. It's just water inside a vape. It's just water inside a vape. Have we got some hands up there, Michelle? Or are we?
Well, we've got lots of false in the chat, that's for sure.
So the idea has been that, yes, it is just water inside a vape, but let's actually delve in and find out what's really in those vape juices. So this picture here shows 4 main component parts in that e-liquid or in that vaping juice. The big chunk at the bottom, the solvent, little purple section there, the sweetener, then we've got the nicotine and the flavouring. Now we're going to go through each of those ingredients in turn because that is super important that you understand exactly what's in that vaping liquid that you're inhaling into your lungs. As well as those ingredients, we've also got some heavy metals. So you might remember I talked about the heating component in the vaping device. The nature of heating does mean that some metals such as lead and nickel do get released into the vape and of course sucked into those lungs. By the way, the lungs the most sensitive organ in the human body. Just hold that thought. Right, let's have a look at some of these ingredients. Diacetyl. Diacetyl is probably not something that you've all heard of, but it is quite a common ingredient in some of the foods that we eat or consume. So commonly found in margarine, commonly found in that good old buttered popcorn that we sometimes heat in the microwave when we're having movie nights. So diacetyl is an ingredient that is safe to eat, safe to consume, but certainly not proven safe to ingest into our lungs. So there's a big difference there, and I'll come back to that difference later on as well. Can cause inflammation of the lungs and breathing problems. Another ingredient, formaldehyde. And some of you may well be going, oh, yeah, that's disgusting. That's the stuff that they use to preserve dead animals and organs. Absolutely. Formaldehyde is another nice ingredient that crops up in your vape juice. It's also used in glues and paints, varnishes, disinfectants, and look at what that can do to our bodies. Burning sensations in the eyes, nose and throat, nasal cancer, throat cancer, and so on. So again, something that's being ingested into our lungs, not the intent that we originally had for formaldehyde as a substance. The next one, this will be familiar to all of those girls out there who might have taken nail polish off their nails with nail polish remover. And if you've done that before, you will remember just the strong smell of that ingredient when you take nail polish off. A very, very strong ingredient that is capable of taking nail polish off your nails. Also found in vehicle exhausts as a cleaner for grease and oil. A lot of really bad side effects on our bodies, and something that also appears in our vape juice. But finally, I guess the really big kicker ingredient that we all need to think long and hard about and spend a little bit more time on is nicotine. Nicotine is the most addictive substance in the world, I understand. And addictive meaning once you start having a bit, you really want to have a bit more. And we're going to unpack what that looks like inside our body. So it is true to say that the huge majority of vapes have nicotine in them. I think it was perhaps intended when vapes were brought in to help people stop smoking that vapes would be no nicotine or very low nicotine. But the research shows us that all of the people vaping in New Zealand at the moment are vaping at the very high doses of nicotine levels. And to give some numbers around that, the highest milligram dose of vape juice that is for sale in New Zealand at the moment is 50 milligrams. If you vape a pod or a juice container of 50 milligrams, it is the equivalent of a packet and a half of cigarettes. A typical person who vapes regularly, socially, over the course of a day or night or a party, would finish a vape juice canister in one session, in one day. So that's the equivalent of smoking, say, 30 cigarettes, which is a lot of nicotine and a lot of cigarettes. So just to give that some numbers, that's the sort of nicotine intake that we're talking. Nicotine affects brain development. That is proven. Particularly during the teenage years. You might remember we talked about the prefrontal cortex developing later in life. Having nicotine in a young teenage brain is not a good combination when that brain is still developing. And there are direct links from nicotine causing stress and anxiety. So when we think about the impact on our mental health, that is a definite factor to think about. Right, let's have a look at the nicotine cycle, because it does have an interesting impact over time in our bodies when we get that nicotine hit, when we have a puff on that vape. So we ingest the vapor from our vape device and we get that top up of our nicotine. And how that presents in your body is a feeling of, oh, it gives you a dopamine hit, if you've heard of that, that hormone. And it's that sense of relaxing or calm. And it usually hits the brain between 10 to 20 seconds later, which is pretty quick. That feel-good feeling, there's that smiley emoji, that sense of feeling temporarily relaxed, but not for long. Because pretty soon, that effect, that dopamine level drops. And I'm sure we've all seen people who are keen to get the next vape or a next cigarette and to get that dopamine hit back up again. Because that feeling of needing that next smoke or vape leaves people feeling quite anxious and can make people grumpy and quite agitated. So what do? Here we have the addiction cycle. When your nicotine levels drop, we're looking for that next dopamine hit again. And the way to achieve that is the cycle of that addiction and needing to go there again. Why are we doing this? Why are we focusing on vaping and vaping as a substance and talking about this with young people like yourselves? The reality is that it's doing harm. It's doing harm to our bodies. And life education is all about bringing awareness to our rangatahi and making sure that you understand the impacts of the sorts of things that are going into our body and making sure that our body is in the best possible place to do the best work it can do. So these visuals here show the impact, I guess, when young people vape, when young people ingest things into their lungs that are simply never meant to be there. So we've got a picture there on the left of a collapsed young lung from using a vape, and then the sort of bronchitis that happens with the diacetyl popcorn lung found in vape juices. So these are conditions that are permanent, have permanent impacts on our lungs. And these are exactly the sort of things that we want to avoid in our young lungs of our young people. Right, we may be wondering how we've got to this place. How have we got to the place of getting caught up in vaping as a thing to do, as a cool thing that we've seen? And I guess it's true to say that social media has had a huge influence on the take-up of vaping, and social media that has been targeted directly at young people. These are just some visuals that you may well have seen on TikTok, on Facebook, on YouTube, showing some of the cool tricks that vapers do, some of the lighting effects, some of the glamour that's associated with vaping. And we're going to look a little bit more about how that is taking over and having an impact on the behaviour of young people. Here's an interesting statistic. So around New Zealand, as of August this year, we had around 120 KFC takeaway stores, restaurants. If we look at the same number of specialist vape stores, we've got a whopping number of 847, and I'm sure in the last month that has already risen. That is a scary number of vape stores, and especially so when we look at how vape stores are positioned, located, and what they look like. And I'm sure you won't need to think very hard about the closest vape store to your school, to your home, shopping centres that we walk around. Vape stores are popping up every week. And the way that they're presented, colourful, cool lighting, almost looks like it could be a entertainment arcade or a lolly shop. So the vape stores are not there designed to help an adult smoker stop smoking. They are designed and located in places that they will be picked up by young people. They're colourful, they're designed to hook young people in and to make money. And in case it wasn't obvious before now, the same tobacco companies that are in effect losing money because less people are smoking these days have now moved to become vaping companies and companies that are making vaping ingredients and vaping products. So they've moved the money making from simply smoking over to vaping. Another interesting visual showing, I guess, the glamorized side of smoking as we knew it back in maybe the 70s, 80s, when smoking was a very accepted behaviour to do. In fact, we used to smoke in hospitals, we used to smoke on planes, people smoked even in schools. And of course, that seems crazy now to be thinking about that when we now know the dangers of smoking, and those environments would never allow smoking nowadays. But I guess now we're seeing a similar example of glamorization and acceptance around vaping, because it's being presented as the healthy alternative, as we know that's not true. So we have very pro-vaping social media posts, messages in the media, and we're even still hearing some of those in 2022, unfortunately, in some cases. So how can we manage ourselves and our behaviours and our decisions so that we can push back and make the right decisions? So the next section of this presentation looks, I guess, at that peer pressure and how we can make the right decisions for ourselves without getting caught up in doing things perhaps because we're feeling forced to by our friends or our peers, or we're feeling that it's a cool thing to do because we've seen it happening online and on social media. So that's just a little joke there. Don't get sucked in, stand out from the cloud. It's also something that is, I'll come back to it later in the presentation, where there is an online quiz that you can do to find out how much you know about vaping. And I'm sure that this group will be scoring 100% on that sort of test by the end of the session today. So how can we manage peer pressure so we can avoid falling into any of these traps? Right, the next part of the presentation is a short little video clip. It's just a minute or so long. I'd like you to focus on what the girls are saying in the clip, but in particular, there is a boy that's going to come into the clip and be part of the conversation. And I'd like you to have a good look at how he appears to be feeling as part of the conversation that he's having with the girls. So have a note of what he's wearing, where he's off to. Hopefully you can hear the conversation well and follow the script, and have a think about how he might be feeling about the discussion. Here we go.
You know, I'll probably wear some jeans, nice top.
Yeah. Hey,
Hey.
what's up?
Not much. Did you see Sam's having some people around Saturday?
Yeah, should be pretty sweet, eh?
What time do you reckon you'll get there?
Got a game at 12, so should be there sometime after coach's debrief. We're working pretty hard for this one, eh?
Hey, you need to try this. It's the new grape and mango flavour.
Yeah, it's a new juice and it's the best flavour yet.
Oh, no, I'm all good, eh? I got training.
Come on, you got to try it. Don't be the only one who hasn't.
Yeah, just take a puff. It's not like it's bad for you or anything. It's just water vapour, eh? You know, probably.
I'll just pause here on this slide. And if we had more time today, we would get some feedback and ideas from you about how you think he is feeling by the end of that clip. As an example, I guess, of the sorts of situations that young people might find them in, whether it's with vaping or smoking or alcohol or other sorts of substances. And I'll just pause here on this quote, which is a nice little quote that I guess has us thinking about integrity and having the courage to do what's right, no matter what the situation is. And many school values I know talk about integrity and honesty and those sorts of values. And it's just quite a good one to remind us when we're going into talking about peer pressure. So a couple of, I guess, solutions, ideas, things to think about when we're thinking about feeling in this peer pressure situation. So pay attention to how you feel. And we sometimes talk about our gut instinct or our gut feel, that if your gut is feeling not right, it's probably giving you a signal that you're not feeling in the good space that you should be. And sometimes we talk about our gut being a second brain because it's telling us that something is not feeling right. So trust your gut, pay attention to how you feel, and maybe you're in a situation that you want to get out of. Planning ahead can often be good. So thinking about a solution or a scenario like we just saw on the video, plan ahead, come up with an excuse. And I think the guy in that video did try and have an excuse. He had sports training that was coming up, and perhaps in the ideal scenario, he would have said, no, I've got training, I'm heading off, and that would have been his excuse. So have whatever excuse you think might work for you to avoid that sort of situation. Simply saying no. It can be hard, but sometimes the strength of your conviction and just having that strength to say no in those situations can be the good way to go. Leave the scene, or gap it, as you say. Sometimes it just might be coming up with an excuse and saying, I need to be somewhere else. I have to go now. And sometimes simply getting out of that situation, a quick exit, coming up with an excuse can be the best way to go. And connected with that is that idea of making an excuse. It might be, got to go and babysit, got to be at sports training. Sorry, I'm expecting a call from mum. I really have to be somewhere else right now. I guess to protect you in that situation and come up with an excuse so that you don't lose face, but are still able to avoid the situation that you don't want to be in. Using a code can sometimes be an interesting one. I know that some parents have a code with their children, with their families, and it can be an excuse that they use, or they can pretend they've got a text message from someone that they have to go and be somewhere, and again, just gets them out of that tricky situation. And really, sometimes it's having friends with similar values. If you're feeling uncomfortable about something, chances are your good friend who shares your values is also feeling uncomfortable about something. And it might be that together you can say, you know what? We don't want to participate in this. We've got to go. See ya. Simply that, something that simple. Right, we're near the end of our presentation today. And I know that there will be some people in the group that perhaps are wanting to talk about a situation they might be in, either with vaping or smoking or other substances, and they may be in a situation where they actually want to talk about it some more. So at this point, I know that there are people in your mind that you would feel comfortable talking to. That might be a parent, or it might not be. It might be a trusted teacher at school, someone that you get on really well with in a school situation. It could be a counsellor. If you don't have those people to immediately call on, it might be that you would be happy picking up the phone or having a text chat with someone from Youthline, for example, or the 0800 WhatsApp number. They are trained professionals who will confidentially talk to you and give you some advice and support around anything that's going on in your life at the moment. It doesn't just have to be vaping. They can also, as well as talk, they can text chat and work with you at a time that suits you. Bit of a joke to finish on, because it's been fairly heavy, serious stuff today. I did refer to the website as well, don'tgetsuckedin.co.nz, a fantastic quiz there for you to do, perhaps with your whānau as well. And a reminder that our heavy metal does belong in our ears and not our lungs. Our lungs are just super sensitive organ of the body. We want to protect them, and the only thing going into our lungs should be oxygen. Let's keep it at that, and give our bodies the very best chance and our brains the very best chance to develop as they should. And finally, I hope you've become more aware today. I hope you're feeling more prepared for those discussions and those situations that are bound to come up in your life over the years ahead. And I hope that you've become a little bit more empowered to make the healthy and the right choices for you that you're comfortable with. Thanks very much. Any questions? We have 5 minutes. Out of roll, you don't have to be naughty kids anymore. Lisette's got her hand up, but it might just be still from before. You can unmute if you like.
It is from before.
Oh,
My hand up.
It
hasn't left me.
We will be cut off, guys. It's literally a 5 minute left to go Zoom. But I just wondered, did Andrea or Laura have any words of wisdom as two educators that have delivered this so many times.
You did
I
a good
absolutely
job,
loved
Tracy.
it.
Well done. It becomes your own, so you can sort of put your emphasis in different parts, because I noticed you emphasize slightly different parts. Like I talked about the lungs a bit earlier than you did, and your clicker was really good, Tracy. Have one of those. Yeah. That was to turn the slides. Yeah, the clicker thing.
Yeah.
That was really good. Yeah.
That's so
We got
true.
really amazing feedback in the Wairarapa. The principals were really impressed with the quality of the information that we presented, and I've since had other local schools reach out and see if we could deliver the same program. So it's been worthwhile here.
Mm. And it's so true what you say, Andrea, about it becoming your own. It's only when I went and had a go and I did a rehearsal, a couple of rehearsals actually, that you realise what you say and what you don't say. And it's only through doing it that you do tailor it to fit. And to be honest, a lot of the detail that I've seen and heard Laura and Andrea go into, because they know the content far more deeply than I do, I did gloss over that. And I guess I went into spaces personally that I was more comfortable in. But hey, I think all educators will do that as well. And it does need to become your own. There is no set word for word script here. There's a set of slides with some commentary and a suggested script to support. It will become your own, and it should. Any questions?
Tracy, can you see the chat?
No, I can't. I think.
Oh, okay, sorry. There was just a bit of dialogue around presenting in the third person. As Tracy just said, an educator is going to put their own slant on this, and life ed philosophy. Keep in mind, this is the first time Tracy has done this. So there was lots of third person stuff there, Tracy. Well done. And then the other comments here around, can we get the clips on the classroom software, please? So if it's suitable to do in the mobile classroom. Do you want me to answer that question, Tracy?
Yeah, if you can. I've just found the chat too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's something we've been discussing. The issue we have around that is we can't put a PowerPoint on. So watch this space. We don't know. But I think, Pip, what you're asking is about the clips. There's only one clip in it, and it's our actors from the theatre with the scenario. So that is being discussed. For the actual PowerPoint itself, it would have to be individual stills or sort of pictures that are put together. So we don't quite know if that would work or not, but it is being discussed. Any input in that would be very much welcomed. Okay, Carlene says individual stills. Yeah.
Siobhan, that's such a good point about making an excuse. And there is a fine line between a white lie and telling a lie and making an excuse. Absolutely. I guess that's about people reading their audience and knowing the school and knowing the students in front of them. Yeah, but wary about that too.
Is that Joe?
Yeah, it's Joe. Sorry.
Thank you. No, I guess that was you.
It's Joe. Yeah, I got pulled up on that one in a Christian school. So it is, you can still use it. You just change the wording of it and then encourage the children to make sure if they do say they have to go home, or I have to, what I say is just say, oh no, I'm meant to be straight home after school. I've got to get out. I've got to go, and you take off, and you just make sure that you remind them, tell somebody at home, tell an adult that you had to say this and this was a situation you were in. So sometimes you can make your way around it as long as you say, but although you've said that, find somebody to say that I've had to say something like that. But I did get pulled up and told, you told our kids to lie, and it's like, Yeah, but what would you rather? Would you rather they steal, or would you rather they, or yeah. So it's an interesting one. You've just got to be careful with. Yeah.
It is.
All right, Tracy, 1 minute to go before it cuts out.
Yeah. So I think my anxiety levels now returning to normal. Thank you all for joining us. I know it was a tough time of the night, but it was decided that 5 o'clock was a good time to allow people to get home and experience this. We have recorded it, so it will also be on the library, available as part of this Keto resources. And yeah, personally really happy to do this, and it's a really good exercise for me as well to actually put myself into your shoes, have a go at delivering something that's not overly familiar to me, and have a crack. So thanks for being such a wonderful supportive audience. Loved all the chat as well. I've just managed to scroll through it all. Fantastic. Thanks everybody. Have a lovely Monday night. Ka kite.